Okay, we are back with our latest episode of Custom Influence, the podcast, the return. Bit of a break from the norm today. Kristen is not with me in the studio today. We welcome a special guest, a very special guest, from a people-centric social agency that puts people at the heart of strategy.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
okay, that's what I've been paid to say.
You did well. I'll give you a tenner after.
Thank you. But no, Robyn Hartley is with us today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
You like the space?
I love the space.
Loving the space.
I do. It's it's a lovely little studio.
Yeah, no, we like it, and it's serving us well. All about the content.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, to kick things off, do you want to tell us a little bit about you, how you've got to where you are with Paper Kite, what's going on in that space at the moment?
The world of Paper Kite.
World of Paper Kite. It'd be great to hear a bit about it, a bit about what's going on.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you in this lovely chat on a very sunny Friday. It's wonderful to be here. But yeah, my name is Robyn Hartley, and I am managing director of a company called Kite Media, which specialises in helping B2B teams, leaders, and execs with social first content, basically building their personal brands, thought leadership content, effectively putting people at the heart of their social strategies. In terms of my background, I've probably been in marketing for about over 13 years now. The majority of that has been spent supporting large B2B tech organisations with full media strategy. And for me, I love the social space. I love the authenticity of it. I actually think that it drives a lot of connection between brands, decision makers, buyers, and the people themselves. And for me, I wanted to do more of that work. I absolutely adore it. So I decided to launch my own business, and we're coming up to our first birthday. So it's been a phenomenal year. I've been very fortunate to support some incredible businesses so far, and the people within them, and very excited to see what's to come.
Yeah, so Robyn and I worked together previously at Robyn's, the agency she was at previously, and whenever we would have conversations around whether it's influencer marketing, social first content, etc., the difference in her expression versus was very different, because you could see there was a bit of a passion there was excitement around it. So when kind of Robyn got in touch with myself and Kristen, said, oh look, I'm thinking of doing this and going to launch this, it was like, yeah, it's a bit of a no-brainer really. It's like, the space is totally ready for that kind of launch, and you're the perfect person to do it, because you're actually, you've got the passion for it, you've got the skills, the experience, you've built that up through working at the agencies you worked with before, you've got the B2B expertise, etc. So yeah, it's no sort of surprise that it's doing so well. So
I appreciate that.
Kudos to you.
Thank you so much.
Congrats.
Yeah, I think a lot of exciting stuff happening in the space. So it's nice to be at the forefront of that.
Yeah.
I think.
Is there any projects that you're working on currently that you could call out and say, okay, that's something that's really interesting, or not necessarily the project itself, but the work that you're working on, or if there's any speaking engagements that people could come and see you at the moment?
Yeah, so I mean, lots of exciting things happening. I'm at B2B Ignite on July the 2nd. I've got a number of other different events that I'm supporting at before that. But I think in terms of general work that I'm doing at the moment, I've got, I work with a lot of brands on kind of team-wide workshops to help people to identify the opportunity within the space, how social is being used by buyers now and what that looks like, and how you can get in front of people on a day-to-day basis to be helpful to them and provide them with value, but also helping to build their confidence in being more visible within those spaces as well.
Showing up,
as
they say.
Yeah. And how to do it in a way that they feel confident, because I think there's, I mean, we'll probably go on to talk to this about this, but I think it is a very vulnerable thing to put yourself out online on platforms like LinkedIn, where everybody within your network is there. But that's also why there's a huge opportunity. So, yeah,
I agree. It's interesting. Even in a short space of time, like even like probably since you started Paper Kite, almost the normalization of even people like within our network, I would say, who'd have thought would never do anything like be online or post any content or anything like that. That worm is turning, on a monthly, quarterly basis of people realizing, oh, okay, this is how it's going now.
Yeah.
And if you're not part of the conversation, then it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, massively. And I think even in the last, like you say, the last year, it's rapidly evolving. But if you look at the last 5 to 10 years, I mean, the way that we consume media now is so different to what it was 10 years ago. I mean, even from the fact of, obviously within the social space, but looking around that, podcasts, for example, having this conversation, I listen to podcasts on a daily basis. It is, a great source of information for me, but that wasn't really a thing back, 10 years ago, really. And if you think about, the opportunity that comes with social as well, and I think we're now in a space where our network is so much wider than it was because of that social interaction that's available to us. We do a lot more research on our own. B2B decision makers do. They look out to people within their network, subject matter experts and peers within the industry. And those conversations are much more readily available now because of platforms like LinkedIn.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's it feels like it's fragmented more and more, but the spaces where there's really interesting things happening and experts are coming to the fore, it feels way more socially led than it ever has been. It's interesting you say about podcasts, because if I think about when I was planning and buying media, I would probably say 20 years ago, like podcasts started to be a thing. They'd pop up, and they were usually from publishers. So it's like I'd get Wall Street Journal phone me up and go, "Oh, we're launching this thing called a podcast. Any interest?" And I'm like, "What is it?" And then they'd send you a huge file through, and it would be a 2-hour long, analytical interview with the head of whatever at Wall Street Journal, and maybe a client, and maybe this and maybe that. And it was like, okay. And they kind of took off for a little bit, but then just bumbled along. And then I think partly because of COVID, but also just, again, the way people want to, engage with content now, it just seems that it's gone through like everyone's got a podcast, that everyone's got some form of, whether it be, a full-blown podcast and they're inviting guests on and they're creating content on a weekly basis, or it's, a monthly thing or a quarterly thing. Everyone's got something where you can put a face to a name, and it feels like that's the thing. It's not necessarily about, pumping out content for content's sake. It's being able to humanize the brand, make people see who they're going to be doing business with, understanding points of view from a human perspective, from the horse's mouth,
and being trustworthy. Like, we want to know, I think you and Kristen have talked about this on previous episodes, but around that, it's that fear of messing up, particularly in B2B. Obviously, the scale of the decisions are huge. So we want to trust the people that we're choosing to work with. And I think you can show up consistently on platforms like LinkedIn, and you can build that trust over, a 6, 8, 12-month period. And that has huge, massive effects on the sales cycle when you eventually come to be discussing those deals. it's such a powerful tool, but there has to be, I mean, there are so many elements that go into that. You need to be helpful, the content needs to be valuable, it needs to be engaging. There's a lot of noise, so how do you break through that? How do you stand out? And but I think the opportunity that comes with that, and when you're doing it and you get that right, I think it's an incredibly powerful thing for teams and for the professionals that sit within them.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, we see it. Well, you will see it in your business and we see it in our business. But then because we're seeing that day to day, it allows us to actually guide clients a lot better, because it's almost showing and doing, isn't it? It's like, okay, well, this is what we're doing and we're doing it at this scale, but you've got the opportunity to do it at X time scale because of the amount of employees you've got, the amount of influencers that would want to work with you, the platforms you reach, the customer base. That's sometimes what's sometimes missed as well. Like, we're talking to clients a lot more of late about bringing customers into the mix. So obviously you've got your employees, you've got influencers, but actually saying, right, okay, how do you get that customer who's been with you for the last 5-10 years, loyal, trustworthy, gets your brand, understands exactly from A to Z what works? How do you get them into the mix of something like this, a conversation, working with an influencer? That feels like almost for us the next iteration of again, it's not kind of like something that's never been done before, but it's almost like something that bringing those extra ingredients into that mix is just something that can take that trustworthy element to the next level.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, and it goes back to everything I believe in, which is putting people at the heart of those strategies. So whether that's your employees, your experts, whether that's working with leading subject matter experts within the space to help with your content efforts and put out those paid promotions, or it might be, for example, like you say, your customers and interviewing them and having real people within your content that adds another trust notch on
the bedpost.
Well, probably not the right term, is it? But do you know what I mean? It's adding that. It's another trust signal. It's another trust signal.
Absolutely.
Probably more a little bit safer to say. But another trust signal for the buyer at the other end that's scrolling through your the feed your feed.
Indeed. On that note, we'll the people element is key, obviously, but I think what we're finding probably from this year actually is like, okay, how do you add tech and data into that to then help the process for us as an agency that are dealing with multiple people all the time? And it was interesting. So you introduced me to a bit of research from a company called Metrical. So you shared that, I think I think they did the research last month, didn't they?
Yeah, it's very recent.
So they look to be a one of the leading platforms that helps share content, helps you if you're doing social media campaigns, scheduling, analysis, results, etc. But they put together a very robust LinkedIn report, and there was some great stuff in there. And I thought it'd be good to maybe pull some of those elements out and we can talk around them, because there's some really interesting things that back into a lot of the work we're doing. So if I go through them, some of the when I went through the report, it's about 40 pages. We'll put it on the show notes, and if you want to download it, go for it. But it's pretty robust. But the things I was looking at were where, in terms of where are the opportunities, based on these results, what could be the opportunities for the kind of clients we work with. And the one that stood out was around posting. So the way they categorized the companies were small to medium, and this was follower count, one through, you're doing well, one person through to 10,000 people, large 10,000 up to 100,000, and then huge is 100,000 upwards. So you're more enterprise brands. But the gap between the accounts felt really big in terms of the posting. So you got small accounts per month. 9 to 12 posts. Then from medium, it jumps to 25 posts. And then it jumps again to 45 posts for the huge accounts. So it feels like where that small, medium mob are posting, it feels like if they kind of put some investment into that space, whether it be employee advocacy, influencer content, whatever that looks like, there's a real opportunity to move up.
Yeah, massively. I think, look, I mean, the more you post, the larger your account, right? And there's a reason to that. The more helpful content and the more reliable you seem, people are going to want to follow you. I mean, from my perspective, you know, if you have a team of people that are all, you've got your brand account where you've got some fantastic pieces of content going out. Maybe you're working with some subject matter experts and you've got some great authentic kind of paid promotional videos going out. But also from an employee standpoint, if you have a team of almost like internal influencers almost that are producing fantastic content, they're sharing their expert knowledge, they're positioning themselves well within the industry, then that reach is only amplified. And it puts, I mean, even from my standpoint, right? I mean, I'm obviously very active on LinkedIn because of the industry that I work in, because of what I sell from the company standpoint. But I rarely mention PaperKite in my content. But there are people that will come up to me and say, "Oh, how's PaperKite going?" Because they go onto my profile and they'll see the company name. So it doesn't have to necessarily be sales heavy. You know, it shouldn't be. It should be
absolutely,
really organic, authentic, valuable, helpful content that people trust and they want to follow.
Tell, don't sell.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
You like that?
Oh, okay. Tell, don't sell.
Yeah.
That's maybe my new strapline. You'll see that next week.
I'm glad I could add value. On that front, so another part they were calling out on the metrical reporting was around formatting. And it's something that comes up in a lot of conversation we have with clients, because if they're not, say, totally au fait with the space, but maybe they're a bit more au fait with things like, you know, advertising and the advertising formats that go along with that. So they're like, oh, what formats do I use? So it was quite interesting on one of the opportunities that kind of stood out. Well, 2 or 3 actually. Video accounts for just 10% of posts at the moment, and you and I know that the reaction you get to videos is can be different. If you get it right, it can be very different. So that felt like another big opportunity for clients this year to kind of get into now, before, you know, everyone gets into it. It feels like that's a bit of the first mover advantage. You know, it feels like, right, if you can get that sorted and get your, whether it's employees, whether it's working with influence, whether it's your board, you know, whether it's customers, and getting them advocating but using video, feels like a big opportunity.
Yeah, I massively agree. I think the videos are just really engaging, aren't they? Like, people do enjoy watching them. You can bring personality out a lot more in them, but also I think obviously everybody knows we've got how much AI content and written content there is, that people are kind of using that as a bit of a crutch to easily churn out content on LinkedIn. And video can't be automated as easily. Yet. Just disclaimer when we're recording this.
I'm looking forward to the Robyn Hartley avatar coming soon to a screen near you.
I wonder what she'd be like. But it can't. And at the moment, I think that's a massive opportunity for people who do feel comfortable going on camera. And I think, you know, when you can see a person in front of you that is talking, moving, it's so much. I don't know. There's something more to that you start to build that emotional connection a lot more with that person.
Or even going back to, like, you know, if I worked at when I worked at an agency, and we had the agency I worked for built a tool for Facebook that basically sat on top of Facebook, and then it would serve advertising into it. So like a DSP for Facebook. And every time they used human pictures, pictures of humans, people, versus product or whatever, the difference, and that was 12, 13 years ago, the difference between the interaction, engagement was totally different, chalk and cheese. It's like people buy people, people want to see people, they're interested in people, we're all nosy, we're all like, if someone on your network starts posting, you're like, oh, what are they saying? And I think sometimes maybe the starting point, and even I felt this, you see people on there, you're like, what are they doing on there, But then it becomes normalised after, when they start, then it's like, oh, okay, I get it. They're delivering, they're doing what they need to do. It's kind of like, okay. And everyone who starts out it always looks a bit crap at the start, because you're like, oh, don't know what I'm doing. But then after a while, it just normalises and you get more comfortable with it. And
yeah, it's that confidence level, because it is, I mean, when you first start, I mean, it is, I always say this too, when workshops and stuff, and the amount of people that have that confidence, like that comfortability level, it can feel really cringe when you start out, and it is horrible. It's such a horrible feeling. It is unnatural. It's really vulnerable. You're worried about saying the wrong thing. You're worried about how you're going to come across and how you'll be perceived. There is an opportunity with LinkedIn to help shape that perception of yourself, but you have to get over that cringe factor of
just doing it,
just getting on with it. And the more you do it, like you say, the more you feel natural. But there's also an element of that training and support piece, because I think that brings confidence to get started. And I mean, an element of this is most recently I've done a couple of workshops in the last couple of months, and I do a bit of a kind of scorecard of confidence levels before and confidence levels afterwards, and you typically see anything between 10% to 20% for a room full of people of confidence post workshop, after 3 hours of learning about it and going through what works, what doesn't, best practices, and how to get started. That confidence level comes up to about 70%, 75%. So
that's huge.
Yeah, huge impact. But that's just because it's having that knowledge. It's knowledge brings confidence, right? So but you have to get past that. There is certainly a kind of a bit of a cringe feeling at the beginning when you get started.
Yeah, there definitely is. And it's like it's almost like, so when you're going to start a project or a piece of work and you're starting from scratch, you sit down with either a blank piece of paper or you're on your computer, etc., and it's like, right, where do I start? And that can be, it's just the jump off point, isn't it? And then once you've got past that, it's like, okay.
It's like with anything new. I mean, when you first start anything new, it feels uncomfortable, doesn't it?
You're not always doing it all in public in front of your network, though, are you?
No. And that's the thing, right?
That is the thing.
That is what it is.
It's like, who's going to take the piss out of me first? Who's going to send which one of my friends who are outside marketing sends a comment going, what are you doing, you plonker?
Yeah, exactly. But also that feeling of thinking, have I got anything good to share? Do people even want to hear from me? Why would I?
Yeah.
But people do, it's and I shared some content around this the other day, but if you've got 3 people that you ask, can you give best practice advice around this particular topic? Of course, you're probably all going to say the same best practice advice, because that's why it's best practice. But what makes it better is the opinion, the perspective, your experience, all of this stuff that builds that out even further. But it's that, it's this kind of, it's giving that direction and having that strategy to start with, and then where you're going.
You've got a bit of a framework.
Yeah.
You can work within that, and
which helps.
Yeah. Wow, that led us into quite an answer for a video thing, isn't it? Another formatting piece that came out of it, that again, I've called this the sleeping giant of content creation, which is probably overselling it, but it's polls.
Oh yeah,
it's polls, surveys. It's something me and Kristen are talking to clients more and more about as almost the starting point for a campaign. So if we're working with an influencer, it's like, okay, can you take the temperature of your community around these topics that are aligned to our client? Then that allows us to get an understanding of what's on the minds of that audience. then gives the influencer some agency to actually create content that is going to hit the mark with that amount of people to start with. But if you've got a community that are, have a similar look and feel, you can X that out. So if you get 200 responses and you've got a larger community, there's a good chance that another 50% of that community are going to think in a similar way. So yeah, polls, is that something you've used a lot of? Is that something
I think
you rate?
yeah, I've used them previously. I massively rate them. I think it's a great opportunity to interact with your audience. I think they get a lot of engagement. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is, we all know you get those LinkedIn lurkers, and they never want to engage with content, they never react, they never comment. But with polls, you often find that they're the people that will answer the polls because their network won't see that they've answered it. However, the author will. So as somebody who's running the poll, I mean, it's interesting from my perspective, when I've run it previously, there are people who answered the polls which I've never seen interact with any of my other content. So it's interesting. I think you can get a lot from that. And like you say, from your perspective, when you're working with creators, that's fantastic because it gives any campaign direction. You can start off from a very solid, we actually asked the audience and this is what they want. Like, that's super powerful.
You reminded me of Family Fortunes then when you did that.
Maybe I should have gone into...
Just got a content idea there.
Yeah. Should have gone into TV game shows. Well,
there's always time.
There's always time. Yeah, side hustle. That could be next year.
That could be the third chapter of Robyn Hartley's
There you go. Exactly.
One thing I wanted to call out that isn't necessarily mentioned a lot on the Metrical survey. We're not sponsored. This isn't sponsored by Metrical, by the way, just in case.
They're going to be thrilled at how much.
I've said it quite a lot.
We're mentioning them.
I've said it quite a lot, but there's no payment here yet. But one thing that we're seeing works really well as part of the mix for a campaign is having part of the activation built into the newsletters of the people we're working with, mainly because of the reach. So if we think of the reach being strangled a little bit by LinkedIn from an organic perspective, that doesn't really happen on the newsletter front. It goes out to subscribers, and it kind of, if they've built up, let's say we worked with one AI specialist whose newsletter was like, he's got 1 million people on his newsletter. So the activation, the views on the newsletter got 100,000, and because it was a totally really well aligned campaign, the actual engagement, the click throughs, it was like in the thousands. So, but if we hadn't have had that newsletter element in there, it would have been quite a different campaign. It just wouldn't have got the amount of reach because of the way LinkedIn's algorithm is, it's kind of working against influencers a bit at the moment. So yeah, I didn't know if you'd had any experience of working with or helping clients build up a newsletter offering, or if there's anything you've come across, that any best practice around it.
Yeah, I think for me the biggest thing is almost optimizing your LinkedIn profile to almost act a little bit like a funnel, right? Like you want people to ultimately sign up to newsletter. Again, build up your own audience off the platform, as well as taking advantage of the opportunity that's available on the platform.
Yeah, great point.
But also when you go into, there's an opportunity to add within your headline a link. So when you're on someone's looking at your posts on their feed, it will say your name, and then just underneath it there's a link, and you can with premium you can customize that link, so you can lead that through to your newsletter. You can lead that through your website. Isn't a great option for that, because it means that people, once they're there, where do they go? Where are they heading to? But if you're leading people to your newsletter, that's a fantastic journey for people to go through. And if you're popping up on people's feeds on a daily basis and they trust you, and they're actually like, this is what I can get from this person within LinkedIn, what are they giving away within their newsletter that's probably going to be even more valuable? And so that is an opportunity there that I think a lot of people don't tend to take full advantage of.
Yeah, we've seen the big creators or the big influencers that we use. That's that's almost in their armory as we've been building this newsletter for years. We've got a loyal base that you can almost guarantee there's the views of it. They're reading it. The comments. There's a lot of comments. It's definitely something to be fully aware of. That that LinkedIn. Everyone knows about newsletters. This isn't like revolutionary, but the actual LinkedIn newsletter element can be really powerful if used within a campaign element.
And it uplifts across the rest of your channels, doesn't it? I mean, if you look at anything from a full media strategy as well, I think I actually LinkedIn released some research which said 9 out of 10 decision makers are much more receptive to other marketing channels if they know that particular brand produces excellent thought leadership. So if you're producing excellent thought leadership, whether that be through the experts on your team or whether it be, influencers in a creator campaign, then all your other channels as well, they will work much harder for you.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
To close out on metrical, so a couple of things. There was they've got a conclusions bit which I'll go through, which kind of we've kind of covered, but it's around kind of LinkedIn being a platform that is great for driving traffic, which I think traditionally it was probably viewed as maybe not that because of LinkedIn wanting to keep everyone kind of in LinkedIn, but I think that's changing slightly. There's always a bit of a difference of opinion whether you should put your links in the comments or put it on show, etc. But I think that's kind of the being on show bit has been debunked, that actually that still works. That's fine. And we see that we can drive traffic from whether it's our campaigns or whether it's our clients' campaigns. That works. Also, adding the paid thought leadership element into it helps as well, because you can really drive that traffic. And they talk about different formats like what we've covered being the ones to look at, and specifically calling out video as the one that's going to take off for LinkedIn. And you can see that all of the stuff they're doing. We'll come on to BrandLink in a minute, which is their new kind of launch for video. But one of the things from an industry point of view that they called out, or what I took from it, when they ranked some of the industries that they got winning on LinkedIn. If you look at the tech space, the marketing space, the media space, the amount of engagement, the amount of impressions created, etc., is over indexing massively. It just feels like they're three core industries that thankfully they're the ones that we're predominantly looking at. That is a platform that is absolutely key for them. If they get it right on LinkedIn, if they get their strategy in place, if they get their whether it's working with third parties, whether it's working with or engaging their employees for advocacy purposes or their customers, etc. If they can get that strategy working in a coherent way that fits in with all of their other activities, long term, that's just going to be somewhere where they can win. They can build that trust.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, we're all spending more time online. We're all scrolling social media probably more than we'd like to admit. But we are. And I think, with that, there comes a need for more content for people to consume. And that's where there's an opportunity for brands to show up with a social first strategy that is leading with authenticity a little bit more and building genuine trust with people and genuine relationships with people, and making, like we said before, making the rest of the channels in their strategy work so much harder.
Yeah, especially with, as you pointed out earlier, the amount of AI based, whether it's content, whether it's just imagery, whatever, being able to cut through that with something that is real, feels like, should be instinctively something that is just going to benefit the brand, but also benefit the platform as well. And I think LinkedIn probably get that. I mean, if it just becomes some sort of AI content hub, then that's going to be a problem for LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think it'd be a problem for all of us. Like, that's not very interesting. That's where you get to the point where all the content sounds the same and just sounds very vanilla and generic, and there isn't anything that cuts through or is overly helpful. And at the moment, that's how you do cut through, is to be authentic, be human. And, and it's not that I'm anti-AI, far from it. I think AI has phenomenal opportunity to help businesses and in all manner of ways. But I think that human element to content is what makes it valuable to us.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you're right. AI has a place, obviously, and it's the next evolution, isn't it? It's coming. It's here. Well, it's here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's kind of, how do we hold on to humanity? I know that sounds like totally overcooked, but I mean, it's when you start going down the rabbit hole of it, it doesn't sort of make for great thinking. But it's the kind of how do you link the both? How do you use one to push the other?
And maintain that sincerity of that content as well. Like, you want to, just be. It's building that connection. That's what it can't do at the moment, is building that connection with somebody. And the way you do that is by sharing personal experiences, by sharing a little bit of, spirit or personality. I mean, if you look at it from a creator point of view, like Heather Barnett is fantastic. I absolutely adore her content. So anyone who isn't, just definitely go follow her. But she is hilarious, like absolutely hilarious. I mean, and that personality and that wit that she brings across within her content could not be copied by AI generated content. I mean, even recently, I think there was a campaign that she ran previously, which was on a paid, approach. And
we paid her. Yeah.
You paid her.
I definitely paid her invoice.
But I didn't even realise it was an ad. I just thought it was a hilarious video. And that's the power of that authenticity and that subject matter expert actually showing up in a way that they know resonates with their audience. They have a community of people who really value their opinion and what they put out and, their style of content. That's so powerful. That's huge.
Yeah. And it's funny because there are loads of creators and influencers and thought leaders and subject matter experts, etc. But there are a few that totally stand out for having their own voice and the way they present. And Heather is definitely one of those people that, she'll blush with us waxing lyrical.
Yeah, I know she will.
But she genuinely does, and that's why, kind of, when you I think I saw you interviewing her, and I was like, I think you introed her to me, and then we started talking, and she's worked on some of our collateral. She's done this ad for us that's performed brilliantly. And she's very cool, isn't she? She's just very funny and a great professional. And
again, we're also not being paid by Heather to make this very clear. Yeah. Metrical and Heather are not paying for this episode.
Yeah, well, that's a shame.
Yeah, I know. We'll have a word with them later.
Just on the stuff we just talked about there, really. So one of the things that we wanted to kind of look at was, like, if you're working with a client, how do you take their, the way they present or not the way they present, but the way they present themselves or what they're working on? How do you take that content from being just blah to, tell me more? What does that look like? And you kind of touched on it there around the sincerity and the, bringing your personality into it. And I mean, not everyone has to do what Heather's doing, which is a bit of a parody and a bit of a character, etc. But, I think I get the feeling that your view is that, if you do bring yourself to the table, people are going to just buy into that way more than being a corporate clone and just like,
Excellent question. And I think
Thanks.
I think a lot of people, right, in B2B tend to show up, and it's not anyone specifically, it's a general kind of confidence thing. It's a general confidence thing. And I think they don't want to bring themselves or that conversational tone to a lot of their posts. Like, I think there's a very corporate element that we have to, when you write a very formal email, when you or kind of white paper-esque kind of language. But actually, what works better is actually just how you would bring yourself in a conversation with a colleague over a coffee. And that is the kind of biggest thing, of just that conversational style, being authentic, sharing your experiences, sharing your perspective on things. There's so much inspiration for content in terms of, what are clients asking you on a day-to-day basis, using the inspiration from those answers for your content, because there's obviously other people that could probably benefit from that. Events that you're running within your company, video content around that would be huge. There's so many different ways that you can bring your content to life a little bit more and bring a little bit more spirit to it. And ultimately, that's what gets engagement. You want, personal standing out and being helpful as well. Actionable content is huge. There are so many creators that spring to mind when I think of that element, of who personally I have learned so much from their content, but as a result, it means that I really trust them. So if they, were to launch, I had it recently. I had a creator who I followed for about 8 months, and found their content incredibly useful and helpful. And they launched an event, and I paid for a ticket within a couple of minutes of seeing that post, because I was like, no brainer. Because it didn't let me down. That event was incredible. So I think it, like I say, that shortens the sales cycle when you come to the point where you are in market. But it's building that trust with people. But yeah, I think just being conversational, being authentic. One thing that I do work on as well is obviously from a more strategic company point of view, helping them figure out what that looks like with their teams posting as well. Are their teams aware of the strategy and their overall objectives, what they're trying to achieve that year? And it shouldn't all be sales-based company content. That's not what I'm saying at all. Yeah. But it's making sure that everybody's pulling in the same direction. Yeah. Otherwise, nothing will land. So it's that building those strategies that align with what are those customer pain points, what are you trying to achieve on a personal, but also on a company level.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because it can be, if you're dealing with a company or a brand and there's lots of employees and there's lots of people that could be part of a, campaign, whatever you want to call it, project. Yeah, if the alignment's not there, it could be a bit messy, couldn't it? It could get a bit, as you say, it doesn't land. And something that actually we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and you said about posting with intention and being more intentional around what you're doing. And you're right, if you don't do that, and especially if you don't do that at scale within a brand, that intention of what you want to do, but also the intention that you want the receiver to feel, will get lost, wasn't it? It just becomes wallpaper.
Yeah. 100%. What are you trying to, what emotions are you trying to evoke? What kind of, how are you building connection with your audience? It's all important. There's so much to consider when it comes to that. But it's just empowering people to feel confident doing it, best practices, and, putting the right support in places that they can do it, feel confident do it, and do it well.
Very good. Final thing. We're going to talk about the new thing.
This is whizzed by.
LinkedIn have released, or are working on, with some high profile creators. One of them, the creators we have just finished off working a big project with, Bernard Marr, is one of the, I think there's about 8 creators within different spaces, from marketing, AI, I don't know what space Stephen Bartlett would be in, maybe entrepreneurship, business.
Probably a lot of things.
Huel. Yeah. Candice Nelson, Gary Vaynerchuk. There's about 8 or 9 sort of big hitters, people who have got 1 million+ accounts on LinkedIn. They've been brought into LinkedIn to create specific shows for a product called BrandLink. And it's essentially creating shows on specific topics that then will allow for video placement to be placed by brands as part of that content. So it's in a drive to, I think, inspire other creators who are not at that level of, your Stephen Bartlett's, etc., to create more video. And probably do it in a different way, maybe do it more episodic, more intentional, I guess. So as opposed to jumping on their phone and doing a bit of content, it's more like, okay, how do I, set this up differently? But yeah, I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that launch and, where LinkedIn's heading. It's obviously a signal to be like, we're going all in on video.
Yeah. And again, yeah, it's obviously a highly engaging format. But I think it's great. I think it's great that they're encouraging longer form content as well. So I think that's a great piece to consider. But I also think from a kind of pre-roll advertising point of view, there's obviously the question of what's that experience going to be like for the end customer or the end user, the audience. But I also think we're so used to seeing adverts breaking up our content. If you look on any other channel, even on Instagram, every 3 clicks we're being served with adverts. So I think it makes sense in terms of the move towards longer form content. I think that'll be really valuable for a lot of people. And I think it will also, at the moment that YouTube is usually that space for that sort of content. So to bring that in platform on LinkedIn as well and have it all under one roof, so to speak, I think is an interesting move. It'll be good. I think it provides a lot more value, and I think it be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think from a LinkedIn perspective, there's probably an element of can we move over? Can we get some YouTubers to come over to LinkedIn and be part of the platform? I think there's that, because up until now there isn't like a monetization element to and that's what BrandLink does. That gives monetization from the ads to the creators who are doing the series. So that's one thing. And yeah, just a kind of a nod to, you can do video on LinkedIn and you can make money from it. Maybe depends on the volumes. That would probably have to start ramping, but it's a sign of the times. I think it's a kind of like, even though it's B2B, it's like, how do we have video on the platform that is educational, gives value, but there's going to have to be a bit more. I would say there's got not entertainment, but almost, it's like if it's dry, this content, it's going to die a death. It will go down quickly. So it's got to have some personality.
Oh, massively.
And I think that's probably why they're starting off with people with a bit of personality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting. It's kind of, it feels like an aspirational play. It's like, let's try and get content creators to aspire to get to the level of where they could be a BrandLink partner.
Yeah. Which is, it's that community based thing, right? They're all working towards it, but you're completely right. It can't be dry content. And this is, as an industry in general, I think B2B social content is dry. I think, sorry if I've offended anyone there, but I think in general, I think it is. I think there's a lot of work there for brands to do to make it more authentic, to make it more engaging. And I think having things like this in play encourages that, which I am all in favour of. Love it.
Me too. I think that's a good place to end. A very positive note, video, personality, it's all good.
Authenticity, all the buzzwords.
All the words. I'd like to say thank you for being part of today's show.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll definitely have you on again at some point, and we can talk about the success of Paper Kite down the line.
Perfect. I would absolutely love that. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a wonderful conversation as always.
Thank you, and until next time.